Is this the worst April that the Kelowna real estate market has seen in years? At first glance, it looks like things are improving. Sales month over month leading deeper into the spring continue to rise. Listings continue to climb, but beneath the surface, the numbers tell a different story. In this update, I'm breaking down what's really happening in the market and why this so-called spring surge might not be what it seems. So let's dig into the numbers a little bit here. So these are the market stats for the Kelowna area, otherwise known as the Central Okanagan. This is the overall residential market. If you are looking to get into the market here, or you're looking to sell or move to the area, I am a real estate agent here. You can simply text me or give me a phone call to the number on the screen, or if you do prefer email or booking a formal appointment, that information is down below in the description. So let's get started with the sales. Again, these are overall sales for the area. So we had 415 sales, which is exactly the same as what happened last year. So if we look at how the market has performed over the last 10 years here. So again, we had 415 sales. If we look at the bottom there, 415 sales in April of this year, same as last year, and last year was a very, very slow year. So that kind of tells us what's happening right now in 2025. It's kind of a slower market. You can even see in 2023, we had a few more sales than this year. 2022, 2021 don't really count. Those were just crazy years. And then if we go back to 2020, that was right when the pandemic started. So that was, or March was when it started. So April was really slow. And then as the year went on, that's when the craziness started. And then if we go back to 2019, 2018, we get into more of a normal market, back to 2017, 2016. So even looking back just 7 or 8 or 9 years, you can see what the market kind of should be at as opposed to where it's at right now. And just going back to the stats here. So the average sale price here in the Central Okanagan is $831,000. Number of active listings, basically a record number of active listings. We're at 19% over this time last year. And if we look at those numbers as well, we have, so right now, yeah, over 3,300 listings. More, almost, like I said, almost 20% more than last year. We're almost at 3,000. And then I imagine as the year goes on, I imagine May to have a lot more. I haven't checked the numbers actually yet, being that it's May. Well, today's May 2nd, but I haven't checked the numbers yet. And I imagine going into further into the spring and into the summer, we'll see even more listings come up. So we are sitting on a record number of listings, as well as a record low for sales. Now, the number of new listings that we had in April, we had 1,208. That's 6.5% over this time last year. And to put a little asterisk there, because some of them, or a lot of them they're not new listings per se, they're relisted properties. Let's say the listing gets canceled, repriced, and then relisted right away. That does count as a new listing. Unfortunately for the data, it kind of skews it a bit. Just keep that in mind. That may not be 100% truthful there. The list to sale ratio, we're sitting at 97%. So buyers and sellers are negotiating on average 3% off the list price. And the days to sell right now, we're sitting at 54. So that's when the properties are marked sold. So essentially on average, if you're a seller right now, overall, and we'll get into the single family home category here in a minute, but overall, if you have your home for sale, the average days to negotiate an actual sale would be 30 days, because typically we do a 10 to 14 day subject removal period. Then when subjects get removed, then that's when the properties are marked sold. So you're around, on average, around the 30 days to get an offer right now, which is not bad at all. Now, again, if you have questions, you can simply shoot me a text message or give me a call to the number on the screen. Now let's go over the single family home category. So that's what we're going to discuss here. I do separate videos for condos and townhomes later in the month. So if you are interested in staying further up to date on the market, I invite you to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on my future videos. So the number of sales that we had in the single family home category, we had 203, which is almost 10% more than this time last year. The benchmark price for the typical single family home here in the central Okanagan is just over $1 million. We've been hovering around that for well over a year now, and that's a 2.4% rise over last year. The days to sell, as I mentioned with the overall market, were about the same as the overall market. We're at 51 days to sell your typical family home, and in order to get an offer, on average, you're waiting roughly 30 days. And this is the same as 2024. So same days to sell, that hasn't changed there. The list to sold ratio, again, for the single family home market, we're also sitting at 97%. Buyers and sellers negotiating around 3% off the list price. And inventory, we're sitting at 4.5% more than last year, 1,438 listings. And that's roughly, it's just under half of the overall market. I imagine as the years progress and we have more and more condos come online here, especially in the next 2 years, we'll have a lot more condos online. I would imagine this number to be a little bit less and the condos to be a little bit more. And the months of inventory, we're sitting at 7, so we've dropped 2 months there. Now, if we get closer to 6 and 5, that means we're in a balanced market. Right now, we're sitting in a buyer's market on the cusp of that balanced market. So we're at 7. So that just means that in theory, if we didn't list any more properties at the end of April, that again, in theory, it would take around 7 months to sell off the current inventory. And the absorption rate, we're sitting at 14%, which also tells us we're in a buyer's market. That's the amount of properties that are sold in a given month. So we have 14% of the homes on the market that sold in April. If we get closer to 20%, that tells us we're in a seller's market. So just for some context there, and the way that these two categories are calculated. So in order to do the absorption rate, you take the sales, divide it by the inventory, and get months of inventory. You just flip those numbers, inventory divided by sales, and that will give you those numbers there. And the low to high sales for the month of April, we had around 500,000 for the low end sale, and the high end sale was whopping 5.8 million. Now let's discuss the pricing and what we've done over the last 5 years. So starting in April of 2020, I always go over these every single time I go over these numbers. I might be a broken record if you do watch my videos all the time, but I really like going into these numbers just to see where we're at, especially because now we have that peak market that happened 3 years ago. So April 2020, house prices were, your benchmark price here in the central Okanagan. April 2020, we're at just over $700,000. In that time, the less than 2 months here, we had a 68% increase in price. We peaked out at 1.18 million, just over 1.2 or just under 1.2 million. And then from that time, from the peak to today, we're down about 12%. And again, we're sitting at just over $1 million as at the end of April 2025. And then if we take that red line back just to see where we're sitting historically, we're between November and December of 2021 pricing. So we're sitting right in the middle there. And then again, from the peak to the bottom of the market was in 2024. But when we had the big sort of, if you want to call that a crash there, that happened when the interest rates rose starting in April. And we had a 17% pullback, and then we've kind of had a 5% increase since that time. And then prices compared again to a year ago were up 2.4%. 3 years ago, again, we're down closer to that 12%. But 5 years ago, if you've owned a home for 5 years or more, your value has potentially increased about 47%. So while April gave us a glimpse of spring activity, the numbers are telling us we're not out of the woods just quite yet. I suspect May to be a lot busier than April. We'll see what the numbers do at the end of this month, but May and June typically are one of our busier months here in the central Okanagan. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or you just want to stay up to date on the Kelowna real estate market, now's the time to stay sharp. And if you want to stay sharp, hit that subscribe button. And if you're looking for more of the condo market, check out this video right here.